Hello and welcome. I am your host, JP John Prize from the Two Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me, the star of the show, the former WCW and ECW World Tag Team Champion, one of the greatest minds and bookers ever in the history of the business, the Games Master, the Taskmaster, the Devil himself, Mr. Kevin Sullivan. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing excellent.
Now let's get to the topic at hand. WCW Starrcade 1991 Battle Bowl, the Lethal Lottery, which is of course the tagline for the show. It was on December 29th, 1991 at the Norfolk Scope in Norfolk, Virginia. The attendance just around 9,000. So good house. Pay-per-view buys 155K, which kind of par for the course in that era and about that era. Interesting to note here, this is the first Starrcade under the WCW banner, technically speaking, and obviously it was WCW really since Turner bought it in '88, but the first really Starrcade under the WCW banner was this year, and that's actually the first Starrcade without the Nature Boy Ric Flair, who went and left to the WWF. Was that a huge blow or what? Not having Flair
I'm sure. I mean, that was one of Herd's biggest mistakes, right?
has to be.
Yeah,
How the heck did you let that happen, right? And he's the champion, and you let him leave with the belt.
because he owned the belt.
But I'm saying from Hurt's perspective, I mean
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
disaster.
That's what I'm saying. He didn't know what he was doing. And I've heard people lately making excuses for it. It killed them for Rick to go up there as a real world champion.
And man, talk about giving the other company a boost, but shooting yourself in the foot. You lose the greatest guy on the roster. I mean, by far the best guy on your roster. He leaves with the belt. He shows up on TV with your belt. I mean, just not good all the way around.
Yeah, yeah. It really hurt.
It's one thing to lose a guy who's basically like the god of wrestling, but then lose him while he's champion and he's wearing your belt on the other pro. I mean, just a disaster. Oh,
Yeah,
awful.
yeah. Horrible.
Now, where are you in 1991? Because you leave in August of 91 as far as WCW is concerned, but you end up right in Philly and then end up in Florida for a little bit with Slinker and then you end up in FMW in Japan, right?
Yeah, Slinker didn't really. He only ran like uh, Tampa and then three other shows a week. But his main thing where he made the money was going to the islands. He went to Jamaica and uh, he had a deal with Jamaica. We were going every 2 weeks. They were paying the guys unbelievable money at the time, and the territory was healthy. It really was.
When you doing like those tours and those trips, is Slinker the booker or is Kern the booker? Who's like the booker on those tours? Or are you?
Well, Slink was the booker, but he would ask me what he thought. But uh, it really, really hurt them because he was doing this. He did a hell of a job. He did this without anybody with any qualifications, not knocking on, but he had never booked anywhere else.
Right.
Yeah,
So as far as Battle Bowl, the lethal lottery here, it's interesting. Like again, going away from your traditional match as far as uh, Starcade is concerned, it's going to be basically a battle bowl, aka battle royal, at the end. And before they're going to have a lethal lottery of tag team qualifying matches with 40 wrestlers paired randomly through chosen tag teams, and they're going to compete in qualifying matches. The winning team advances to the 20-man double elimination battle bowl battle royal to determine the winner. So it's a little confusing, a little crazy. Um, but it's one of those things where I guess trying something, right? I mean, trying to do something different.
yeah, and that's what they did, and it turned out for them to be the best thing they could have done. I look back now, is maybe Tony should do something like that. I think his ratings would go up.
He kind of did, if I remember correctly. He kind of did try to copy this idea a little bit when he was, and then I think Adam Cole and MJF started teaming together, something like a Battle Bowl, not Battle Bowl, but like a Lethal Lottery type deal. He tried to copy it a little bit, but obviously not entirely.
Yeah, but that was like when we lost Dusty and his whole crew. Now look at what's happened. They lost uh, another Rhodes. They lost Dustin. They got the bloodline over like crazy. And then Roman exploded. And all these other young guys that most people didn't think they were going to get over got over hugely. We've mentioned this before.
So as far as Battle Bowl Lethal Lottery, just want to mention before Starrcade, Sting started a feud with Rick Rude. He also started a feud with Lex Luger. Luger won the WCW Championship and the vacated United States Championship, all kind of during and around this feud. Sting won a tournament to become the new WCW United States Heavyweight Champion on August 25th, and then he put. Well, obviously, if you're the United States champion, it puts you in contention for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Luger basically sees Sting as a threat. He hires two hired guns to take out Sting, which of course are Abdul the Butcher and Cactus Jack. So on October 27th, Halloween Havoc, Rick Rude makes his return. He makes Sting a target, and then at Clash of the Champions number 17, Luger ambushes Sting, injures his knee, which allows Rick Rude to win the United States Championship. That's just some background. Sting basically has two feuds going on. He's feuding with Luger. He's feuding with Rude. Rude's the U.S. champion now, but now Luger brings in Abdul the Butcher and Cactus Jack to feud with Sting. I love the kind of uh, unearthing of Luger with like the mystery boxes, and he comes out of this kind of tent and attacks Sting. It's just maybe a little hokey, but I kind of like the way it was set up, and he's kind of like the mastermind villain, bringing in these two psychopaths to deal with Sting.
I mean, I had been gone, so I was amazed at how Luger stepped up to the plate and had a magnificent run. And then you had the greatest babyface of that era, Barry Windham. I mean, everything fell into place for them. Reversely to what happened to AEW for WWE. I mean, WWE, the ratings have been down. Hunter came in, he did an incredible job. The booking took off. Hunter, Rude, Barry, and a host of the others. Weren't the Road Warriors there too at the same time?
Not here in '91. They're going to be in WWF in '91, but here in '91, so basically Vader, Luger, Sting, Ricky Steamboat, Rick Rude. Those are like the top guys. Pretty good. Even though they lost Flair, still some pretty good top guys in
Yeah.
as far as Starrcade is concerned.
Yeah, and they did a hell of a job. I mean, they came and they delivered.
So So as far as lethal lottery, it's going to be random teams are going to be selected and put together. That they're going to go through the ball. They're going to show the backstage area, and then you're going to find out who your tag partner is, or the match really is going to be. And it's just going to be a random pairing. So it's going to be odd teams. It's really kind of a wacky thing. We talked about Battle Bowl and Lethal Lottery before on the show because we've covered a few different times when WCW had it, but the random pairing here, we'll talk about the first match. Marcus Alexander Bagwell and Jimmy Jam Garvin versus Michael P.S. Hayes and Tracy Smothers. Just kind of the way it happens, the way the balls shake, that's just the luck of it. Um, So Bagwell and Jimmy Garvin defeated Michael Hayes and Tracy Smothers in 12 minutes 45 seconds. Nothing too great here, nothing really to write home about, but it's one of those things is as a booker, when you're putting this thing together, are you just trying to make it like the weirdest combinations ever? Or are you trying to make it make sense?
I would think, because I wasn't there at the time, I think they did a hell of a job there, bringing all those guys in, and it clicked. It was something completely different.
Want to mention also Magnum TA is the commissioner, if you will, the Battle Bowl commissioner. So he's kind of overseeing this thing. Obviously, Bischoff and Missy Hyatt, who are like the second string announcers, if you will, they're also on hand and on the proceedings to show you who these random pairings are and these random team ups are going to be. The next team is pretty good. Stunning Steve Austin and Rick Rude defeat Van Hammer and Big Josh in 12 minutes and 55 seconds. Another long tag match here. Just a random pairing, but Austin and Rude, pretty awesome pairing, and just shows you some pretty good talent WCW had in
Yeah,
1990.
yep, absolutely.
Back when he was stunning Steve, did you see anything in him? Like, what did you see in him?
Oh, yeah, I saw a lot in him. I saw a lot in him. I don't know why he was let go. That was that was stunning to me. Him going, you know, he had
Do you
so much potential.
Do you think that he could have feuded with Hogan in 95? Because I know that was his big point of contention. Then he got hurt and then he got released. Could he have feuded with Hogan, or is that just maybe Hogan beats him on a Saturday night or something?
No, Hogan really saw how he got over, and he wanted to work with him because he knew how hot Brian was.
So the Austin's point of contention though in 95 was that Hogan didn't want to work with him in 95 though.
That was before the angle, before he
Right,
got over that
right.
angle.
Yep.
Once he
So
got over that angle, that's all
so
Hogan wanted.
so basically Hogan, if you can get over, Hogan will work with you. If you can't get over, he's not going to waste his time.
Right.
Kind of a good business sense, I guess, in a way.
Oh,
Do you
without doubt. I mean, Hogan got a percentage of the pay per view. The higher the pay per view was, the more money Hogan got.
can't beat that deal for sure.
Oh,
And we've talked about that in the past where he lost the title in 97 to Luger and people were like, oh, it must have been this, it must have been that. And you kind of said, and obviously I totally agree. Well, he gets part of the pay-per-view. So the rematch was for the title and he wins the title back. So it makes people want to order the pay-per-view because he gets a kickback from it. So, I mean, pretty smart business wise, lose on Nitro, get the title back to pay-per-view, get people's interest in the pay-per-view.
exactly. And it would have been a huge house. Brian was over. I mean, he got over quicker than anybody I ever saw. The only one I can compare it to would be maybe Brian Pillman. Bill Goldberg and Brian Pillman got over quicker than anybody I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. Did you
And
see Goldberg recently? He was at the Falcons game.
no, I didn't.
He speared, it was on the field, but he pretended like it was a fan, and he speared the quote unquote a fan, and then the mascot and him celebrated.
Uh, well, I think Bill can still draw money.
I agree.
If I was them, I mean, I wouldn't hesitate to call Bill. They have this thing there that, they talk about the older guys from WWE, right?
Hmm.
Yet Bill would probably be over bigger than any of their guys right now if he came in and was treated right.
Yes, love Goldberg. Yep.
Yeah.
Next up, another random pairing: Dustin Rhodes and Richard Morton defeated Larry Zbyszko and El Gigante in 6 minutes to advance to the Battle Royal. Nothing really to write home about here for that one either, except for, did you ever see anything in Elegante? Did you like
No,
he was a
no,
basketball player? Did you ever see anything? 7'7"?
no. The reason why he was on a personal contract with Turner, he had brought him up for the basketball team, and he didn't make it. You know what I mean?
Yep, with the Atlanta Hawks. Yep.
Yeah. So
What about Richard Morton? Ricky Morton as a heel. I mean, do you hate that gimmick?
no, because he can work, but there's at that time there was no better babyface than uh, Ricky Morton in the business. Can you hold on 1 second? Sorry about that, my man.
Yep, no problem. So the next matchup, Bill Kazmaier and Jushin Thunder Liger, what a pairing that is, defeated Diamond Dallas Page and Mike Graham in 13 minutes. Nothing great, nothing to really write home about the match here, but what did you think of Jushin Thunder Liger?
Well, I brought him in for the first match for Nitro. That's how much I thought about him.
What an impressive athlete, right? It got to be one of the greatest of all time, right? As far
Yeah,
as wrestling is concerned.
absolutely.
WCW seemed to be ahead of the curve on some of the Japanese guys. I mean, obviously Muda, sticks out. I mean, but it just feels like you guys knew your
Chono,
talent. Yep, Chono, a bunch of guys.
I, I, I told you I was personally invited to go over when they cut the deal
Yep.
with, with New Japan. They asked for me to come, and one of the things that they appreciated was I kept their guys good. I can't remember beating any of the guys they had pushed in Japan unless it was like Scott Norton against Chono. That's the only one I can think of, and that might not have even happened. But they were working a program in Japan.
What'd you think about Bill Kazmaier? Obviously, the strong man, if you will, the weightlifting champion, world's strongest man. He's a power lifter. What'd you think about him?
I think he was not handled the right way. He was an impressive athlete. We should have been. They should have been able to do more with him than they did.
Do you like Mike Graham sneaking onto this pay per view?
Yeah, because they knew Mike had worked with Muda quite a bit in Florida, and they used Mike to get Muda over.
So I figure with Liger, he can do the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So the next matchup, Lex Luger and Arn Anderson with Harley Race defeated Terrence Taylor and the Z-Man in about 10 minutes and 30 seconds. This was actually a pretty good match, probably the match of the night so far. Um, Obviously, two heels just randomly being put together, Luger and Arn, but that's a damn good team. Terrence
Yes,
Taylor, obviously the heel version of doing the tailor-made man gimmick, and then Z-Man Tom Zank. So good team with Luger and Arn, randomly, of course, randomly put together.
it was. Terry's a very good worker. Very good worker. Uh, he should have done more in the business, I believe. Uh, Terry had a lot of distractors. Uh, he had a problem of keeping his mouth shut and saying the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Interesting. Next up, Todd Champion and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat defeated Cactus Jack and Buddy Lee Parker in 7 minutes and 45 seconds to advance later on in the evening. Do you remember Todd Champion? Did you see anything him? He looked
Oh,
like $1 million.
I knew Todd Champion from Florida. Uh, Him and his brother, uh, he had a tag team partner in Florida that were very, very good. Him and his brother, and it was just one of those things that when he got there, it was so stacked. He got lost in the shuffle.
Next up is Sting and Abdullah the Butcher. Talking about just a random pairing of being put together. Sting and Abdullah the Butcher defeated Brian Pillman and Bobby Eaton in 6 minutes. Another really, really good match. Obviously, the angle here is that Abdullah the Butcher hates Sting and was trying to take him out and didn't care about winning. Um, because he's hired by Luger to take out Sting, but they get the win anyway because Pillman isn't going to play along. He's kind of being the good baby face there. But good match as Sting and Abdullah defeated Pillman and Eaton. Are you a big Abby fan here in 1991?
Yeah, see these fingers? They're from
Yes.
Abdullah.
Whoa, what did he
I
do?
worked a lot with Abdullah all over the country, all over the world, and he knew how to get heat. He drew money, and the thing about him being over so well was he did something smart. He knew he couldn't stay in a territory too big, too long. Uh, he was an attraction like Andre. He could come in and maybe stay 2 months at the most, but he was very, very good.
The finish of this match saw Cactus Jack trying to take out Sting, trying to cheat and help Abdul the Butcher, but it goes for naught as he by accident hits Abby and Sting ends up getting the victory for the team. But basically, Cactus was trying to cost them, and Sting ends up pinning Eaton with the crossbody, and then Abdul the Butcher ends up fighting with Cactus Jack post match. So Cactus and Abdul not on the same page here.
No, no, but that was to further Sting's push.
Yep. And the next matchup, Big Van Vader and Mr. Hughes defeated Rick Steiner and the Night Stalker in 5 minutes. Okay, match. Nothing crazy, nothing right home about here. But Night Stalker, of course, everyone knows is Brian Clark, aka Adam Bomb. Interesting to note, he replaced the Diamond Stud Scott Hall, who would be leaving the company pretty soon in this tournament here. Big Van Vader, obviously, I mean, you saw star out of him probably right away here in 91.
Yeah, I mean, he gave believability like Gunther does to the WWE. We talked about talent that they have. Boy, that Gunther, we never talk about him, but boy, that kid's got something.
Yeah, you know what's funny? We were talking about all those main event guys. We named like 10 or 11 guys, and we ended up saying Sami Zayn, right? We forgot
Yeah,
about Gunther. There's another guy who could be a main eventer for them. He's awesome.
he's absolutely terrific. He brings that shade of is it real or is it not? He's fabulous. And like we said, we mentioned everybody else but him. Not just him. We didn't mention uh, Dominic Mysterio. We didn't mention a lot of people, but they got a great roster right now from top to bottom.
It's crazy to think, how much talent they have right now. It seemed like for a while they were in desperate need of star power and good talent, and now they have a whole slew of them. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
Next up,
absolutely
oh,
crazy. I mean, a few years ago, you didn't have to turn on the TV until maybe 8:45 mark.
right? Yeah, weren't going to miss anything. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Next up, we have Scotty Steiner and Firebreaker Chip defeating Arachnaman and Johnny B. Bad in 11 minutes to advance to the next round, or really advance to the Battle Bowl itself. Just kind of A weird gimmick, to be honest. This Arachne Man. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's Brad Armstrong, but he's under a weird hood and he's supposed to look like a spider. Is that just trying to be more like WWE and try to be like kid friendly and stuff with this gimmick?
Yeah, I think they were trying to give Brad. I wasn't there, so I'm just taking a shot in the dark. They gave Brad another chance because three greatest workers that ever got over ever because of his. If he could have had his father's interviews, he would have got over like $1 million.
It's funny when you look at it. It's like, okay, Road Dogg got his dad's talking ability.
Yeah,
Brad got the working ability. You know what I mean? It's just like nobody got the complete package. Bob was the complete package.
yeah. Bob was a huge star in Atlanta. He was something else. I mean, he drew money from the time he got into the wrestling business.
Is it also true that the best looking girls were in Pensacola, and that's why the Armstrongs and the Fullers love that area so much? Is that true?
Uh, if it's not, it's be a toss up between them and the main office in Florida, Tampa.
Oh, I can see that. Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Next up, Ron Simmons and Thomas Rich. Tommy Rich, of course, is a heel, defeating Steve Armstrong, speaking of one of the Armstrongs, and PN News in 12 minutes to advance to the Battle Bowl and the final of the tag team matches that will lead into the Battle Bowl. Of course, the final of the Lethal Lottery tag matches. What do you think about PN News, the rapping gimmick? Do you remember that gimmick?
yeah, I sure do. He drew a lot of money in Germany.
Yeah, a ton.
After he left us, he went to Germany, and I think he actually moved to Germany. And he drew, like we both just said, he drew a ton of money.
To me, I feel like kind of underrated, if you will, maybe overlooked just because of that gimmick was so weird with the rapping and the yo baby yo baby yo. He's actually pretty good.
Yeah, the gimmick was great for him. The gimmick was great for him. And, later on, they had Brad do that gimmick where he was, what was he? He was like a rapper too. He had the dreads and everything else. But Brad was an incredible worker. Incredible.
So then we have the after obviously all the guys are in the Battle Bowl after the Lethal Lottery. We have 20 guys. So all 20 wrestlers start in the first ring. Then, because it's two rings for the show, then the elimination comes when you go from the first ring, thrown over the top, and into the second ring or onto the floor. And then basically you get eliminated. So, elimination from the second ring occurs when the wrestler is thrown from the top to the floor. This continues until one wrestler remained in the first ring and one in the second ring. So, you gotta get everybody out of the both rings. Then, once that occurs, the remaining wrestler elimination occurs when one wrestler obviously is thrown over the top to the floor. So the remaining wrestler will be the winner. Hopefully that's not confusing, but basically Battle Royal rules two rings. Once both rings are empty, the two guys face off, and then there's got to be a winner. The
I,
guys in it.
what?
Were you confused at all by this kind of little wrinkle in the battle royal?
I Here's the thing. I could have been, but it turned out that everything they did touched the gold. I mean, they had the guys who were working hard. They had a hell of an angle for everybody in the show. They did a masterful job. You had the Armstrongs in it. You had Tommy Rich in it. You had Ron Simmons in it. Vader, Sting, you had Luger in it. It just really got over. And I think it helped WCW kind of get off the ground.
So then, as far as the match itself, the 20 guys: Bagwell, Garvin, Austin, Rude, Rhodes, Morton, Kazmaier, Jushin Thunder Liger, Lex Luger, Arn Anderson, Ricky Steamboat, Todd Champion, Sting, Abdul the Butcher, Big Van Vader, Mr. Hughes, Scott Steiner, Firebreaker, Chip, Ron Simmons, and Thomas Rich. Those are the 20 guys. The final four in the first ring were Sting, Rude, Lex Luger, and Vader. Sting and Rude basically exchange punches and they eliminate each other from that first ring. Then Vader kind of dominates Luger with the big splash and the body avalanche, but then Luger fights back and eliminates Vader with the clothesline to become the last remaining wrestler in that first ring. The
Right.
wrestlers remaining in the second ring obviously continue to fight until you get down to the final four. The final four in this ring were Sting, Rude, Ricky Steamboat, and Steve Austin. Sting then attacks the Rick Rudester, and Rude and Steamboat basically end up eliminating each other. Sting then eliminates Austin. He's the final member in that ring, which means the two guys from the two remaining guys would be Luger and Sting. Whoever knocks the other over the top rope and out is the winner. Sting, of course, eliminates Lex Luger with the clothesline, and he wins Battle Bowl. The final match there went about 25 minutes. What do you think here? Predictable Sting gets the win because Luger's the world champion, and the winner of this does get the title shot. Was it too predictable to have Sting win, or is that good? You got to have the feel good story here at
No,
start.
I think the way they got uh, Vader over, and didn't he go over the top rope in a really magnificent way to get him out of the ring?
Yeah,
Didn't
Luger
he go?
nails him with a nice clothesline. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it really got Sting over too, because he'd been selling and selling against two major heels at the same time.
I do like Sting winning. I think that was good, maybe predictable, but good because obviously him and Luger are the feud, and that's kind of what it's being built up to. Sting gets awarded the title match. He'll fight Luger at the next pay per view, which ends up being Super Bowl number 2. And of course, Sting ends up winning that match. He wins a world title. Luger then, of course, leaves WCW, doesn't head to WWF directly. He heads first to the World Bodybuilding Federation, then heads to the WWF. Sting would obviously continue his feud with Ravishing Rick Rude and the Dangerous Alliance. Sting, of course, would fight the Dangerous Alliance in a War Games match that year at Wrestle War. Sting then, of course, would feud with Big Van Vader, who was then managed by Harley Race, and they would feud over the title as well. So, kind of building blocks here leading into a lot of things. They still do have a lot of good top talent. What do you kind of think overall of the show? I felt like two strong matches as far as two strong Lethal Lottery tag matches: Luger and Arn versus Terrence Taylor and the Z-Man, and also I like Sting and Abby versus Pillman and Eaton, and then of course I like the Battle Bowl Battle Royal at the end as well. What did you think of the show?
I thought the show was excellent, and I think they had guys really worked hard, and like I said, I think it really got every story told exactly the right way. And then they got what they needed, Sting and Vader. I mean, I thought it was tremendous.
Sting and Luger there at the end. Yep, yep.
Yeah.
And as far as Sting and Luger were concerned, obviously they were the two stalwarts of the WCW team after Luger leaves. I mean, after Flair leaves, so they were kind of the anointed ones, and they were kind of thrust into the main event scene. Luger leaving not too long after that, a little shocking, especially headed to the World Bodybuilding Federation, right? I mean, that was kind of shocking.
Yeah. I never got a chance to ask Luger about what happened, why he left. I mean, he had been homegrown for WCW, and I'm not sure what happened because, like I said, he was homegrown in WCW, and he did a magnificent job.